Hi, everyone, and welcome back. We are in the process of getting the executive function skills uploaded to the screen.
So it just gotta have the location and pay mom, we have to make some.
Okay, just make sure if you have any questions, just put them in the chat box
Also the planning, she's.
and we'll get to those questions.
And I can just ask you, because we just have like a group text. And whoever can make it that particular, they make it, and so she'll send out a group text and say, hey, we're meeting. And it's typically from 6 to 9 on Mondays, every 3 weeks. And we, like I said, we've done the movie theater, bowling alley. CC's Pizza seems to be a hit.
Do I need to?
Has the arcade in the back, and then there's the
Okay.
back pizza.
I'm sorry, give me a second. I'm gonna stop share right quick.
At the
Disconnect.
Morton Ranch location.
Technology.
I know, about 3 months, like, and then they.
Okay, I stopped sharing now. There you go.
They really enjoyed working there, so. About how many people you're? Anywhere from about 8 to about 15. Oh, that's nice. That's fruit, yeah. So most of the time that they engage, with parents, we kind of have our table. And they, have their, and the owner of that location is really nice.
Yeah.
We bring in music sometimes, someone on YouTube, a little speaker. And they, they talk, some of them go to the arcade, some of them are virtual, some are not virtual. But they all, meet out. And some parents drop off and pick up, and some parents stay. But one day on Saturday. No, it's normally Mondays. Mondays 6 to 9. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I think the more than that. First one. Okay. And that's that one needs a.
Yep, they are live. You want to just start?
And that's.
Yes.
They originally.
Okay,
Everybody. Oh, that's good.
Okay.
Guys are gonna let you know when the
oh, okay.
We'll just go ahead and I can try to play the videos from here.
Grateful that we have that, but
Yeah.
It should show here.
Yeah.
in between.
Yeah. So I'm sure, because that's another thing as parents, like we try to help. In this, but, a lot of
No, that's
times
okay. I
they'll
appreciate
be
it.
on each other's numbers.
Yes.
before we can know it, it's just like I'm working.
No, I mean, I should have been, I mean, understand here.
Okay, these are all yeah, problems.
Okay.
Yeah, my eyes, then I'm not gonna be this, so I'm gonna have some. If you want me to stand over here, I'm gonna be there. I was going about. Guys, so we're having a little technical difficulties, but hopefully we'll. Let me get this, so we'll use that screen, I'll try to flip mine around. My name is Kelsey Tomiello, a little background information. I started out working with vulnerable little ones with autism. Then I switched to working with adults. I actually worked for a nonprofit with Andrew and was a transition center for young adults with autism, 18 to 35. Unfortunately, they shut down, but I've been able to maintain work through a lot of the previous clients there. One of the girl that I currently work with, I've been with her going on 7 years, and she actually became eligible when she was 22 for the waiver program. So I provide Texas Home Living Services and CFC, respite, and I have about 28 to 31 hours a week with her that I fill and I manage her schedule. So we go out in the community a lot, and executive functioning skills are what I really are. They're just kind of the basis for how I plan her schedule and how I keep her kind of regulated and build activities. And they've grown throughout the year. And this past year, she's been working for Kroger for about 5 years. And she's just slowly kind of become more social with that. And with my little, I call him Andrew's part of my top gun, all the guys that I've been able to keep in touch with. And we just go out and I try to plan like going to the mall, I take my girl to a fitness project every day. That's one of the places that we go, and I kind of apply the executive functioning skills at home and out in the community and at the gym. So, what are executive skills or executive functioning skills? Right, Andrew, you want to push?
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah,
All right.
downside.
Gotta
Okay,
come over.
so
Yeah.
there are brain-based skills required for humans to effectively perform tasks and solve problems. They're really in everything that you do. And when I talk about them, you'll kind of realize, oh, I get what that means. But they start when you're little, they're mental processes that help us plan, focus our attention, remember instructions, and juggle tasks simultaneously. So in a nutshell, they help you get done what needs to get done. They are needed to manage the tasks and problems that are faced daily. They help us regulate our behavior when other things become a distraction, such as like peers or other environmental stimuli. So when you use executive functioning skills, they're in everything that you do. They're in your morning routine, they're in driving, how you driving to work, planning and cooking a meal, or completing your chores, organizing your things before work, or just getting ready for the day. Lots of things. As we get older, we are required to function with a reasonable degree of independence. So we don't always need to be telling, like with kids, we kind of help them, okay, you need to do this, you need to clean your room. We keep them regulated on the schedule, but as they get older, they learn to do that on their own, and they develop the independence to keep that going. So individuals I should have mentioned, I am actually a graduate student at Arizona State University and I'm studying autism spectrum disorders. So that's kind of primarily what I do, but a lot of executive functioning skills tie into people with developmental or intellectual disabilities. So those executive functioning skills don't quite develop. And the thing that's really cool about executive functioning, so I have a TED Talk, a link to the TED Talk down here, and they talk about like the brain. So a lot of the executive functioning skills develop in your frontal lobe. And you can actually see in MRI scans, the difference, like whenever people are using those skills, but people with developmental and intellectual disabilities, the frontal cortex, it doesn't quite develop as long or it doesn't develop at the normal rate, if at all, or it can be strengthened. But that's a lot of what I do with my services, is to keep my client maintained, because she learns them at a very slow rate. But if I'm not consistently on top of her to make sure that she's doing them, then she kind of loses that, because it can take her, like I've been with her 7 years, and it took her probably like 5 years to get her room cleaned within a reasonable amount of time. But yeah, so I like to tie that in, because you can see how it affects your brain. So the first one is response inhibition. It's also known as impulse control. You want to do the down one? All right. Oh yeah, do it one more time.
All
One
right.
more time. Sorry,
All
I
right.
forgot to tell you. Okay. So that's basically response inhibition is thinking before you act, because you consider the consequences. So thinking before you speak, lots of things like that. And it helps you to suppress certain emotions that are inappropriate for certain contexts. It's a conscious choice to ignore other stimuli. So minor background noise can be a major irritant and struggle with this. So if you have like ADHD, in addition to autism, you might hear one little sound in the background that is just, you hear that sound and you can't tune it out. Then you focus on that and you're not able to get, your stuff done. You can't regulate your emotions. Resisting the urge to say or do something before you've had the chance to evaluate the situation or the possible consequences. So that's self-regulation, and that's like tying into the workplace too. And people who have difficulties with if they just don't understand certain social situations, this one is really difficult, because they're not always like, oh well, that's inappropriate to say, it was in my head, I probably shouldn't have said it out loud. And then they have to unfortunately suffer the consequences of, okay, now that person has a weird thought from me, or has a weird thought about me, right? Social thinking. Hold on, I got two more bullet points. So it's critical for executive functioning skills to develop. And a lot of these tie into, just whenever you're a child, you start learning them, and it loads on and loads on and loads on as you get older. So it becomes a struggle in adolescence. That's when you really start to notice, because kids are able to kind of, what's the word? If they can't think of the word for it, but they have other ways that they can kind of hide that mask that that's a difficulty. They're able to make up for it in some way, but in adolescence, whenever they're required to, like in middle school and high school, they're in charge of getting to class on time. We have a 5-minute break, you have to go here, you have to go here, this is a different class, this is the book you need. So that's kind of like, you notice with the disconnect in the thought. And then also there's a disconnect in thought versus action too, because in adolescence, peer pressure becomes a factor, because that's one of the suggestions in the book. It's Smart But Scattered. Actually have it in my bag working it out. They said, whenever with adolescents, we have to kind of, we know that that your kid is, if they're struggling to make a good social choice, that they're going to make a mistake, and because they want to do something to look good with their peers. But usually they learn from that. But people with disabilities, that's not the case. So that can end up affecting job performance if they are able to maintain the job for a certain amount of time. So emotional control.
All right.
In order to regulate our behavior, we need to be able to control our emotions. So this is being overwhelmed. It's not just being able to control your temper. It's being overwhelmed, handling confrontations, and managing hyperactivity. Like sensory stimulation too, managing unpleasant emotions. So that's more than just like being really angry or sad. It's also just minor irritation. Or I work with a guy who talks about how he's recreationally annoying if he's hyperactive, because he's in a good mood and he wants to be funny, but not everybody wants to be funny, and then he has trouble filtering that now's not a good time. So I always like to bring up that word. And it's also important to generate positive feelings too, because if you are starting to feel overwhelmed, get self-conscious, and then it's hard for you to think of something positive to snap you out and get your emotions kind of back in check. So this is the girl that I work with. I take her to a place called Emergent, and it is a VR place. And it's actually a video. I'll see if we can. So she's actually playing like an escape room. Can y'all kind of see it?
Nice.
It's in the woodlands, but she actually has a headset. So she's in an escape room. She's trying to throw the skateboard up because she needs to get these items down to get out of the room. But the computer is not letting her because the not getting that to where it needs to go. So she's tossing it and she's regulating her emotions. I think she ends up just like putting it down, and she's trying to think it through. And let me kind of show the guys on. Sorry. Hey guys, let me see if I can get you this video real quick. So here's my client. She's trying to throw the skateboard. You can see her on the screen. So she's looking up and the skateboard's not going where she wants it to go. It's not doing what she's wanting it to do, so she has to control those emotions going on. And you can tell she's being quite persistent and she's not getting frustrated. All right, let's go to the next slide. So I have another one. And this one, hold on, is this one?
Okay, Chris next.
Yeah, push next, because I
All
think I
right.
actually did. Here we go.
Beyond.
Push next again. There we go. Okay, so this one, she's in a cooking game. This one is Flash of the Chef. This one has all kinds of, I have a lot of good examples. But she's this one, she gets kind of frustrated because you have a lot that you have to do.
Okay.
So she has 3 orders. And also, like, so the thing isn't quite working as well to help her pick up the patty.
No, it's good, don't toss it. Well done.
Fries burnt. So let me go show them over here.
I'll push the play right for you.
Oh, can they see it on there? Okay. Yeah, so here she also, if you hear it in the background, you have the timer going, like the customer's waiting, they're getting frustrated. So this, it's more than just emotional control, but it's also a very realistic setting. Oh, yeah, that was me talking. Sorry. All right. Okay. All right, next slide.
Yes.
Down button. I think in that one she gets frustrated, or that might be the key. So flexibility, this is one of the things that I call this throwing a monkey wrench, or the monkey wrench method. So flexibility is being able to adapt quickly to changes in plans, new information becoming available, when mistakes happen or last minute changes, just to name a few. And the last minute changes is, that's what I call the monkey wrench method. So with my client the other day, she thought we had a plan and I said, nope, grab your stuff, let's go, because she doesn't handle that very well. So that's the way that I kind of work on that, because over time you learn that, okay, I can adapt to this change, let me think it through, this is happening at the last minute, but it's okay, I can manage my emotions and I can ask for help and say, well, I don't want to do this. But that's a lot to regulate when somebody just switches the routine really quickly. So everybody experiences a variety of changes with people, situations, and expectations. So the flexibility, like people on the autism spectrum, you know, they have a certain expectation that people have of them. And then when that changes, especially on the job, they're able to do more, and then they're thrown a new task. And it's like, that's not what I'm supposed to do. Or they have somebody else ask them who's not their typical supervisor. And so they might get upset, or they might say, no, I'm not doing that. So I actually had with my client, she didn't get frustrated with anybody at Kroger, but somebody else asked her to do carts. She wouldn't do it because it wasn't the person who typically tells her to do it. And so they kind of misunderstood, but thankfully she's been there long enough and they knew, well, I'm a new person, because they actually switch. It's about every 2 years they get a new supervisor that she has to check in with. So that still throws her for a loop, and it takes her a good 6 months to a year to get used to the new person, depending on how friendly they are. So she kind of has to adjust to a personality style. So it's basically going with the flow, or being able to roll with the punches. So some examples of like a, you know, reflexive monkey wrench method is, your favorite food is unavailable at the store or restaurant. So if you're used to going to McDonald's and you get a number 10 and they don't have a number 10, what are you going to do? What would you do, Andrew?
They don't have a number 10 at McDonald's, because like at McDonald's I'm not sure what I'm gonna do.
Well, so say you always get chicken nuggets and they're out of chicken nuggets, what would you want to get? Would you want to get anything else, or would you leave?
I probably just want to get something else.
Right, so if, you know, but if you have a limited diet and when you only want one thing at this particular place, you're gonna walk out and leave, and then you're done for the day. My day is ruined, I can't have chicken nuggets. So again, that's where sometimes I will too with my client, I will take her to new places and have her order at the counter, because the places she's familiar with, you know, she orders just fine and she knows what she wants. And actually in the cooking method, or in that cooking game, I'm sure you have another slide on it. She was actually unfamiliar with, don't go to the next one, I made a mistake. Yeah, back up. So on that game, it has American food, sushi, Mexican food, and Italian food. Well, she was going away from the American food, or she didn't want to because she didn't know how to cook the other stuff. So she was kind of unfamiliar. So she was like, well, I'm not going to do it because I don't know what this means. Well, people put cheese on their pizza. You know, that's all they have. They don't want mushrooms. They don't want other things. So that's where, even in playing those games, she was really limiting herself, just even in the virtual reality experience. Okay, so metacognition is thinking about your own thinking and learning. Being able to take a bird's eye view of yourself in a situation. So that involves problem solving, self-awareness, and self-monitoring. And I actually have a clip from Friends in here. You guys want to watch, go to the next one, and let's see if we can, press play at the same time.
Right there. Okay.
All right. Oh wait, wrong one. Hold on.
Oh. No.
Put on YouTube.
Yeah, click on the YouTube link here. Let's
Right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Hold on, it's just a commercial.
We'll skip it and then we'll pause.
Next
We'll
one.
get ready to sync them up. Hold on, guys.
All right.
Skip ad. All right, let me get the other one ready and we'll sync it up. So that everybody can watch it at the same time. Skip the ads over here.
This castle, it's at vacant for so many years.
Okay, so in this situation, Rachel kind of explains, she does something that she thinks is gonna be appropriate because she wants, it's something that she feels she needs to do. And then she's like, wait a second, she starts laughing. So we'll play it. Are you familiar with Friends?
Yeah.
Okay, you ready?
Ready?
Oh, yeah.
Not funny, but
I see it back there. Also ties into the response and additional thinking before you act.
I can see you.
That's a pretty good show, Friends.
There it is. Guys, it's after the fact. That wasn't a good idea. What did I just say? Okay. Thank you. So again, like metacognition too, that ties in, going back to response inhibition too, like that thinking before you speak. So she kind of got caught up with her need to say something. And that happens to a lot of people like who are on the spectrum who have vast knowledge of a particular topic. They want to share all of the information about it, but you need to know it. I need to keep telling you about it. You don't understand it. Let me keep giving you this information. And then what happens? The person walks away from the conversation because they're like, well, you're not letting me get a word in, or I don't want to keep talking about that. And then so the social interaction kind of suffers from that. So and this is another, so here, we're going to skip that example because I can't remember exactly what she was doing here. Yeah, okay, so organization is the next one. All right, so the ability to create and maintain systems for arranging and keeping track of important things. It involves more than just keeping your spaces clean, your work area clean and tidy, your car clean, and keeping your dishes out of sight. So like one thing that you do when kids are little, I worked in daycare for many years and we always had the cleanup song. Whenever like it was time to clean up their centers, and of course they don't want to do it, but it gave them something to do to regulate and keep them, you know, kind of you repeat what you say through the song until you put your stuff away. Let's see, this is difficult for teens because they underestimate the amount of time you need to make a deadline or need to determine how long something will take to get done. So this is also relates to completing homework or tasks on the job. So you can have a paper that you have to write and you think, I can do it the night before, it's only 2 to 3 pages. So then you look at you get to that night and then you look at your rubric or your assignment and it's like, oh, I have to do research for this. I have to look at the book for this. I have to get questions from somebody. I have to interview somebody. I haven't even thought about that. So again, it's more than just keeping things tidy, you know, it's a kind of a system for getting things done, so. So the girl that I work with at Kroger, she's required to do rejects, and so she gets, that's basically things at the counter that people decide they don't want, or they kind of put away on the wrong shelf. So she's given like a bunch of just miscellaneous items that she has to put back up in the store, and so trying to get those. Remember, you know, that the organization of the shelves can be difficult. She knows Kroger well enough now that she pretty much has kind of a rote memory of where things go. But at the beginning, she really shied away from doing that because it was hard for her to look at the mess of all the items that were, you know, from all over the store and like organize it in her brain and make kind of a plan of where to go. Which also ties into planning and prioritization. Completing the steps, a set of steps to reach a goal, to complete a task, or zoning in on what is important to get done. So with the Kroger example, like zoning in, well, I'm by the frozen food, there's nothing frozen in here, let me work my way back to the store to get over here. So kind of like make a plan for all of your items to do it in the most efficient time. Efficiency is the key for planning. So that can be like meal prep, making your lunch. So the girl that I work with, she struggled with healthy eating. And really, she likes healthy foods. It's just a matter of planning it. And making her, she would actually spend a lot of money on food at Kroger because she didn't quite know how to plan her own meal. So she would buy like, well, I need 4 Lunchables. And it's like, well, you have like 15 minutes. How are you going to eat 4 Lunchables when you work 2 to 4? I mean, 2 to 6. And you maybe eat lunch at 12. But if no one's there to tell her, then she's like, well, it's lunchtime now. I have all this food available, because she also doesn't really think ahead of time, because that thinking of food ahead of time is really difficult. So Andrew, when do you plan your lunch if you go to work?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, well, sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. What about you? Do you plan your food, or are you like, I want this right now? Well, that too has been difficult for my client, is realizing, well, you can't always have the food that you want in this moment. One of her favorites is pasta. So we can't have all the pasta in the world. And we have to, because she had cholesterol issues, we have to start planning her pasta, because she would eat pasta every day if she could. But now that she's 28, and you know, it's affecting her health, because that's what she typically would go to, was pasta and white rice, and she would eat a bunch of it. But that's all she would eat like for the day, you know, so that that for her has been a really, like, I bring that up just because I know people on the spectrum, or people with disabilities, like having, if they're left at home and they know they're supposed to eat something at certain times of day, but they don't really know how to regulate, oh wait, it's time to eat. It's normally like, well, I'm hungry, let me have these snacks. But then if you're in charge of grocery shopping, you know, if you go through your bag of chips that's supposed to last you a week, what are you going to do? You have to go to the store again. Oh, I only have a person that can take me once a week. Well, now I have to wait for chips for the rest of the week. What am I going to do? You know, so it's kind of that planning and prioritization.
So there was a time I worked for a young lady, and young woman, and her whole thing was macaroni and cheese. That was the only thing she wanted to eat, was macaroni and cheese, and just trying to introduce new foods to her was very, very challenging. Cause she's like, no, just man. I'm like, you have to eat something else.
I've actually gotten her to I've got her on chicken bacon ranch. So I get like shredded chicken and ranch and bacon, and we actually put it on a quesadilla. She can eat it plain, because she also likes tuna. And I've just really tried to find other ways to get her away from pasta. Now her go-to was to go to Olive Garden and get plain dry pasta and shrimp, which it ended up being like a $20 dish, and she would eat it all because it was like one serving. So thankfully, when we started doing the chicken bacon ranch, she decided to try grilled chicken at Olive Garden.
That's good.
So then we found out, so I told her, I said, well, let's make your pasta at home, because you make it plain, it tastes the same. So we can actually get 4 to 5 chicken breasts for $20 at Olive Garden. And then you can freeze, like she can have 2 for the week, and then freeze the rest of them. And you've got like much more for your dollar. But also she likes Chick-fil-A grilled chicken. They have grilled chicken nuggets, and they also have grilled chicken patties. So you can, that's perfectly healthy and easy to grab out of the fridge, because, you got to take it out of the tinfoil thing, because Chick-fil-A has it on the inside, but you just put it in the microwave, zap it, and it's easy to go. And then, so planning out the details for an activity, I think, were you guys talking about, I used to plan social activities and I still do that. And I Andrew, what did we do with you and your brother? Where did we go?
The Pearland Town Center,
Yeah, and where did we eat?
Russo's Pizza, and after that we go around the Pearland Town Center to go shopping at GameStop and Bricks and Matrix, like a Lego store. And right after that, we usually shop at Bass Pro Shops.
That was fun, we went to Bass Pro Shop, so
Yeah.
we will kind of we'll plan out the day, or I'll have incorporate them on making the plans, because one thing too is if you have to plan how to clean your room or plan how to do something at work, it's not fun. But if you're starting out with an activity that is fun and something that's enjoyable, then those steps of breaking down, well, first I have to do this. And you kind of take, I call it the upside down triangle method. So you have all of these things that you have to break down, because that's what we did. When we first started out at Russo's, and they have a bunch of other restaurants there. And I think we had planned to go somewhere else, but I think your brother mentioned that they had pizza by the slice for like $5. And we were like, yes, let's do that. So we can get a cookie afterwards. But the whole group was like, instead of getting that, I think they have desserts at Russo's, but it's probably a little more expensive. But instead of going to somewhere where they could have probably spent double the amount, we were, someone had suggested a plan that they liked. And then we walked around and everybody Andrew led the way, but everybody said, well, let's go here. And then they would see the signs of stores where they wanted to go later on. So I was like, all right, well, let's just keep on moving forward. And then if some people saw stuff to the right, we would have a meetup place, because we've gone 2 times to do that. So they kind of develop their own plan, and it's more fun and motivating because it's a fun activity. All right, sustained attention, being able to focus on something despite distractions, fatigue, or boredom. It also involves maintaining your attention. So this is a critical skill for driving. And the most common way to build the skill is to set rewards for working for increasing intervals of time. So being a grad student, I'm a little bit hyperactive. So it's hard for me to sit down and get all of my reading done. So I have to plan, I know myself, and I know I get a good amount of information if I'm standing up pacing around my room reading out loud. So when we do that, set a timer so I don't get distracted by anything and get that done, and then I can go do something else. So I set a reward for myself. So I'm gonna go downstairs and get a snack. It's your basic token economy. And again, it's some people don't really like the idea of, you have to work for something fun, but if it gets something done, then set the goal for yourself, because it doesn't have to be something that you go and spend money on. It could be, I'm gonna go take my dog for a walk, or enjoy the time outside. I had a guy who I worked with, he had a full-time job at an oil and gas company, and his job was to digitize oil logs. So he had to stare at a screen and trace these lines of like a log. I don't know. It was very technical, but he had to be staring at a screen, and they measured the success based on per feet. And so they were supposed to get an average of 80,000 per feet. He was getting 17. And they were like, well, he's getting up and he's stretching and he's going and walking outside. Well, come to find out, somebody had suggested that he get up and stretch every once in a while and give his eyes a break from the computer screen. Well, he wasn't able to manage his time with that. So he was all over the place. Well, I gave him just a basic, I gave him a checklist. I said, work for this long. And he was actually able to work for a good 45 minutes and stay focused. Because he just was able to hyper focus on what he was doing. But he would set the timer, and then he would have 10 to 15 minutes, because they said it's okay for him to have that amount of time if he's focusing. So once we gave him that schedule, his per feet was 70 to 80,000. But just breaking that down and then showing him, it did increase the intervals of time, but not by much. But that's what I have these so this is a motivator, and it is really cool because you can set it for a minute, a few minutes or a certain amount of time, and it buzzes your little cell phone vibrator. And I have my client, if she's in her room, because we started out, she would have 4 hours to clean her room, which seems crazy, but it was not fun, and she needed to do it independently. So when she got to a certain point, it was on an ongoing process. I had her put the motivator on, so she would say, wait, am I picking up at this time, or am I getting distracted in my head? Oh, okay, I'm getting distracted in my head. This thing is going off. I need to go put up these items. This process can take many years to develop, and as adults, the need for rewards to stay focused or complete tasks becomes more complex. Because again, if you're an adult, you're on a budget, and you can't go buy fun things. So, but usually, you know, that kind of fades. But again, if you have a fun activity where you can call a friend or text a friend or play a little game on your app, then by all means do it if it helps you get your stuff done. All right. Working memory. Here we've got the lost keys. That's the common example of working memory is where did my keys go? So working memory is holding information in your head while performing complex tasks. Part of this requires pulling from past experience. So if you touch something hot, you learn to use a pot holder. In my first days working at an ABA clinic, one of the methods that we tried for working memory was to repeat something like 2, 4, 6, 8 or like 8, 7, 2, 1, you know, repeat after me. And they would have to repeat it back. And then the next step would be to repeat that back, but repeat it backwards. So that was kind of the way that they started to do working memory. So taking notes in class, you take notes as like an upside down triangle method. You have a teacher talking for a bunch of time about something. So you write down bullet points of important.
Wait a minute,
things.
Kelsey, we have a question.
Yes.
Wait, come back this way. They want to know the name of the place that you do the VR.
So it's called emergent VR encounter.
Okay, I'll type that in.
And it's off of Rayford Sawdust. It's really cool. I think I have 2 video examples here.
Emergent what?
VR encounter.
And it's located in the Woodlands?
Yes. All right, so here we have a pizza example. And
Okay,
then
here you
I'm
go.
actually gonna do,
You can go back and-
all right, Andrew, we're gonna do the right example.
Okay. Um,
That's not-
Frozen.
oh, no, somebody's trying to get in. There you go. There you go.
Okay, so this one first, we're gonna, wait, was it? I'll tell you to press play when I do. So the first example that we're gonna do is Ashton's playing the escape room and she has to find a code to a keypad, but there's like a whole process to get to it. Because she sees it, but she also has something else in her mind that she's doing, so she's doing working memory, because at the beginning you hear the prompt, I think you have to look for a keypad. Ready to play it, Andrew?
yeah,
Ready, set, play.
this one,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, wait, I started the wrong one over here. Okay, there we go. She's kind of switching from different things. So she found a key there. And something else. So one of the things she does is she actually goes and she has to find, when you see the keypad at first, there's like, you don't see anything above it. She actually goes in and she finds a different light bulb. She puts the different light bulb in, and when she puts the different light bulb in, she cues over to the keypad, and in neon, there's a code there. She still has some of these other things that she has to do. At first I didn't realize, I was like, why is she getting the light bulb? Like, was she just like, you know? But then she had a plan in mind. And there it is, light bulb. So there she discovered. The writing is on the wall now, so it has the code right next to it. But now she has to remember the code to type it in. She has to restart a couple of times.
This is the first time she's ever done that.
She's done it before, a couple of
She's pretty calm.
and she loves puzzles, so even the first time, she was like still
She just
pretty
looked
good.
at it as a puzzle.
Yeah. And now the light bulb thing was new, because some of the stuff changes, so she got out. And, but that's too where she's super calm and doing those puzzles. But yeah, I thought it was cool, because even me with the light bulb, I'm like, "Can you just goofing off? Did you get bored?" Because I did have some other videos to where she was doing some other things where she was kind of like looking around in the environment. All right, ready? I'm gonna skip through kind of quickly because I think I'm running a little. How are we on time?
Well, you got like 4 minutes, but you can.
Okay, so time management, I kind of covered that too with a lot of what we've talked about, is being able to estimate how much time to complete a task and being able to get it done within a specified amount of time. So you need to know how much it takes to get, how much time it takes to get ready, so you can set your alarm in the morning. Knowing how much time it takes to drive one place to another, or drive from one place to another. We were talking earlier about like the rides and the Ubers, if you're planning that, because one of the girls that I would invite, she would say, well, what time do we need to leave? I said, well, give yourself 15 minutes to give, because she kind of knew the time frame of how long the Uber would respond. So she needed to know how long the Uber would respond, in addition to how much time she needed to get to a certain place. So completing work tasks and assignments by a deadline. That's important. Goal-directed persistence, the ability to establish a goal and follow through to achieve that goal. So just like the escape room, you know, you want to get out, but you have all these mini goals to get the final prize, getting out. You need to be able to reach your goals without being distracted by competing interests. So budgeting to make a down payment for something. So if you're buying little things throughout the week that are fun, if you want to budget something, well, you set aside that little money to make it towards a bigger purchase. So we encourage individuals to practice, to get this, to reach their goals by practicing. So like taking piano lessons, if you want to learn how to play an instrument, you have to practice, keep getting better. Repetition, time, and effort. So virtual reality exposure therapy, also called VERT, that's kind of one of the things that I'm researching a little bit with Emergent. So most research has shown that it's effective in alleviating symptoms of PTSD in veterans, because some of those games are, can be anxiety provoking for lots of reasons. Some of the games are helpful for people who are afraid of heights. The girl that I take there, she's very much afraid of heights, and there was one game that she got on, and I could hear the fear in her voice when she got to a cliff's edge. And there's just the aspect of it. I mean, it's pretty real when you have that headset on, but I can tell that she was nervous, and she'll avoid that game, and she'll need someone because it'll feel so real. But that physical, so it can help manage the physical anxiety symptoms, because like the shakiness and overwhelm. I know when I get anxiety, it's like I hear ringing in my ears, or I can hear my heartbeat in my ears. So again, with the virtual reality exposure therapy, you're kind of throw yourself into a situation that causes you to feel these things in your body and overcome it, because you get what, I can't tell her, well, quit shaking because you're nervous, well, try not to be nervous. You just have to put yourself in a situation where you're nervous. And that is it for my executive functioning skills. Thank you for your patience with the technical difficulties.
Does anybody have any questions about this? Okay.
I was curious, does the VR have anything for like driving simulation?
They do. So I did not get a video of the driving, but they actually, so they work with the Texas Workforce Commission and they have 2 driving simulators. They just got an updated version that actually it's like you're on streets and you have, I think he's got like stop signs and some of them are racing, but she likes to just do leisure driving on it. But they are, you can feel like the car when you go over a bump, the simulator kind of moves and it's very, very realistic. So,
Excellent.
so yeah, it's really cool. I thought about that after the fact because I know that, you know, if you want to drive, because for her, she wants to be able to drive, but it could affect her dad's guardianship. But also her learning how to drive could be, I mean, it could take her really 10 years to be actually out on the road and be comfortable and capable of that herself. So she can go to emergent and do the leisure driving, and it's very real. So,
Well, especially if they have, you know, just a lot of sensory issues, just. You know, learning, like you said, to be able to manage those emotions so that it's not a distraction.
yeah, well, and she loves to point out the grackles, birds, she loves animals and stuff, and I'm like, okay, if you ever drive, you can't, like, when she's in the passenger seat, I'm like, let's try not to point out all the birds or the animals, let's try to focus on the road, because she's getting to where she can kind of navigate her community within a certain kind of circle of frequent places that she goes. She knows, well, you're supposed to turn left here. Something like that. Do we have any questions on there?
No, it's just a question about the virtual reality at first, but that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
You said it, that the VERT, this, the Texas Workforce has those driving seats. Are you saying that they, provide those, or do you go to Emergent to get those and then Workforce kind of pays for the session?
So the workforce pays for the sessions. I'm not quite sure on the technical stuff. But I know if you sign up through the Workforce Commission and you have certain goals that you've talked to them about, I should have brought a card. Then they will they'll set up, are you with they'll ask you when you come in, are you with the Workforce Commission? And then they have games set up. They also have a it's called a Berkman report. It's a test that they use to guide gameplay. So if you're not good at some stuff, certain skills through the Berkman report, they have games that tie in with that. Because I know I'm trying to think of a good example. One of my strengths is like numbers, and the Berkman pointed that out. So I was actually able to get my lost 70 pounds because I was able to find out my strength was put numbers on things. So again, I was able to use that, and the same thing with my classes, using those strengths. So that's another thing where you say, well, I did this with the Workforce Commission. Can I play this game? And they have like a record of it that they keep at Emergent.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you guys.